Hello, my name is Greg, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of installing GNS3 version 1.3.3. In this video, we're going to install and configure several devices, including in this video VirtualBox for adding in a PC to your topology. There are different ways of doing that. You can use VirtualBox with Win7. WinXP is kind of tricky because you got to make sure you have drivers for the NIC. I found. So Win7 works the best if you have a license of Win7 from Microsoft. You can create a VirtualBox um, uh, VM for Windows 7, as you see here. Um, and In a minute, we'll get going on that, and I'll show you how to bring that into GNS3. So basically, to start off, like I have in my previous videos, I wanted to show you the folder structure that I save all my stuff in. It's easier to find rather than digging into the users under your C root. If you create this folder structure under the C drive, just create a folder called GNS3, and in there create these four folders. Um, Basically, with documentation, you can keep copies of your documents or books or anything that you use for GNS3. Images is in here is where I usually keep the VM for the IOU, which right now is at 1.3.3, as well as my IOU-RC license file. Um, and also in this iOS folder, I keep all my iOS platform images. One thing to mention quickly is that if you want to use IPv6, you want to make sure that you have a image that ends with T dot and a number, or a T and a number at the end of it. So the only one you don't have to worry about is the 7200, because that's a 15.x image. If you got that, you're good to go. We also have in here our IOU image files that for L2 and L3, as you'll see. We'll get that loaded into the VM in a minute. Going back to the images folder, I also have this QEMU folder, and that's where I keep my ASA files, which are the images and the hard drive files for installing an ASA device. Um, in previous videos, I mentioned that to create this flash file that um, for adding a hard drive to the ASA, there are videos out there on YouTube, but after my last video, I did a search and found that the video that was there that showed me how to do it was gone. So I went ahead and typed up these procedures on how to do that. So if you pause the video and use these steps, it'll let you create this flash file right here, and then you could copy it into this folder structure. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video real quick and go ahead and create this so that way you can follow along. Okay, welcome back. So I'll go and minimize or close this out. So going back to the GNS3 folder, we also have layouts. That's for super putty layouts if you want to make changes to that. I don't really do that often. But if you do want to do it, you can save them there. Um, and also you can create this projects folder. Both the projects folder and the images folder will be saved in the path inside GNS3, as you'll see in a minute. And in here you'll have all your projects that you're working on and whatnot. And basically with that, it lets you have a file structure for saving your topology and all your configs if you're not familiar with GNS3 yet. One thing I mentioned in previous videos is that Wireshark is at a newer version than what's in the currently distributed version of GNS3, even this current version. So right now, as of this video, the most stable version is 1.12.5. If you go to www.wireshark.org, you can download it right here at the most stable release right there. And once you have that, you could follow along. I would go ahead and pause the video and go and download that so you have that, and then come back after you have that. Okay, welcome back. So now that we have this folder structure in place and we have the files we need, hopefully you've also downloaded this GNS3 distribution file. If you haven't, go out to Google GNS3 Jungle and log in there and download this version 1.3.3 version. And also, as I showed earlier, you want to download this IOU VM, which is also on that download page at the very bottom, which is 1.3.3. It'll take you to SourceForge and download that file. So once you have all that, we'll go ahead and get started. So to start with, let's go and install Wireshark. In my previous video, I already had it installed, but I figure I'll go ahead and show you how that works. So go and hit run, next, I agree, and pretty much next to everything. We want it to install WinPCAP, so we're going to hit next. When we get into GNS3, we'll uncheck the boxes for installing WinPCAP and Wireshark. Alright, go and hit next. I agree to install WinPCAP, install, and finish. I'm not quite sure why GNS3 doesn't put the latest one, maybe because they want to ensure that it's stable with what they're using in GNS3. If you do run into any issues, you can uninstall Wireshark and install the one that comes with GNS3. So we'll go and hit next to this and finish to that. Alright, so now we got Wireshark installed. So let's run GNS3. So hit next, I agree, next to GNS3, and this is where we uncheck WinPCAP and Wireshark. The rest you can leave alone. We pretty much need all of this for GNS3 to run. So go and hit next and install, and it'll download the SolarWinds Response Time Viewer. And depending on your internet connection will determine how fast this goes. Alright. So now it's going to ask me to put a email address, and for the purposes of this video I'll use GNS3 at GNS3.com. Go and hit continue and next. Check the box to agree to the license and next. And then this thing will say not responding. It looks like it hangs. There it goes. I think it's doing it just to create the location for the file structure. So we'll go and hit next, and then it copies all the files it needs for it. This takes a second. Come on. Once this is done, GNS3 will continue installing. Alright, we hit finish. There it goes. Alright, so we'll go and close out of that. That's the response time viewer that it just installed. And that quick, it just installed GNS3, so go and hit next. As I mentioned in previous videos, if you don't already have this SolarWinds standard tool set, right now it's being offered for free. It's a $200 value. If you don't already have it, hit yes, and it'll take you to their website where you can register for it and download a free copy of it, which has a lot of good networking tools. I already have it, so I'll hit no and next, and let's start GNS3. So when you start GNS3, it takes you to the Jungle page where you downloaded this distribution. So we'll go and hit minimize to that. It also opens GNS3's splash page, which also you can go to GNS3 Jungle from there, report a bug if you find a bug. You can go to their blog and check for any, get help on anything that you're doing. In most cases, there's a lot of documentation also and user groups, which is pretty cool. So if you're new to GNS3, you can allow this to come up every time you open it. But if you're old, if you've used it before and you know where all that's at, you can check this box and hit close. Okay, now it's going to ask us to start a new project. We're not doing that just yet because we're going to make some changes to this path, as you'll see in a minute. But this is where you type in the project name if you want to create a new project, if you're not used to GNS3. And you can also open a project, or this shows a recent list of projects. We're going to hit cancel right now because we don't have anything loaded in it yet as far as devices. If you're new to GNS3, basically over here are your node types where that get installed, as you'll see in a minute. This is the main topology screen. This is the topology summary that will show a list of all the devices and their current state. There's start, suspend, and stop, which the colors will change for each device depending on whether it started, suspended, or stopped. Down here in the console, it will give information as far as if there's any errors, or if, with Dynamips, or status of Dynamips, or when you do it, when you save the project, it shows the configs are being saved. Down here on this line, it will show the path that the project's being saved to. So pretty much in a nutshell, that's how it works. If you mouse over these, it'll show you what all these buttons are as well. But for now, let's go ahead and get some devices installed, and we'll go ahead and hit preferences. The first thing I usually do is go into general tab and set my paths to that folder structure I mentioned earlier, and this is for the project. So we want to go to C GNS3 projects and select that folder, And next we want to do the same for images. So C, GNS3, images, and select that folder, and that puts them both in here. I usually change this style to charcoal because it's easier on my eyes. You usually want to hit apply when you make a change too. Just make sure it saves it. Um, Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does, but just to be safe as you go through, hit apply. Go to console, and from here we set up our console type for Telnet. Um, it defaults to Putty, but unless you want a bunch of Putty windows open for each device, I usually use Super Putty. It's a free tabbed window that creates a tab for each Putty instance. There's also this secure CRT, which costs $100, but has a few more, or actually a lot more features than Super Putty. You can also use TerraTerm and Xshell and others in here. But for the purpose of this video, I'll use Super Putty. So go ahead and hit apply to that. That's all I change in here. Topology view, the only thing I change in here is I check this to draw a rectangle when an item is selected, and that does exactly what it says. It draws a rectangle around it, dashes, so it's easier to distinguish what's selected. I don't usually do anything under miscellaneous. Under server, I don't normally do anything under here. But I do go to remote servers and I add this IP address and port. That's for VirtualBox. That's the VirtualBox VM IP address for the IOU devices, as you'll see in a minute, and its port number. So I'll go ahead and hit apply to that. Under packet capture, this is for setting up features of for Wireshark. I usually leave that as default, and same for VPCS. VPCS is a very basic virtual PC program that allows you to do pings and trace routes. So if you just want a quick and dirty PC, you can use that. Or you can use a router by going into the router's global configuration mode and changing, or excuse me, I should say setting no IP routing to turn off routing, and adding a gateway IP address by using the IP default dash gateway and then the IP address, and also setting a device interface IP address for the interface that you're going to connect to your gateway. But in a minute you'll see we're going to use VirtualBox for that, which I think is better because it gives a lot more versatility. So for Dynamips, I don't usually set anything in here. I do go under the iOS routers under Dynamips because that's where we install our iOS routers. So under here we hit new, browse. That takes us to that folder structure we just saved in the general tab. So we want to select one of these. I usually use this 2600 the most because it's a small router, but it's one I use the most. I like it the most, I should say. Under here, you could select your chassis type. I usually use the 2651XM, but there are other ones in here that you can use. Depending on your platform and your iOS image will determine whether there's more than one chassis type. So we go and hit, usually the name and platform gets auto-populated. So we'll go and hit next. This is the default RAM that GNS3 attempts to guess for your particular image. In most cases it gets it right, but if you're not sure or if you have issues where it's running out of memory, you can click here and it'll bring you to this Cisco feature navigator, and from here click this image name and paste in the image name like this example here, right here, but you want to make sure it's got .bin at the end, not .image. GNS3 uses .image because it's an unpacked iOS image, so it speeds up GNS3 a little more. So once you paste that in here and put .bin at the end and hit enter, it will show down here the 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 most optimized, or I should say the best value for that default RAM. So we'll go and minimize that, and that's where you put it right here. And then so we'll go and hit next to continue. The 2600 router only allows you to have this in slot 0. There is no other choice. Some routers will let you change the slot 0 network adapter type. There are other options under the other slots which you can add, but I usually leave it at a baseline with just this, and then I add under the WICs, which is on the next screen, a WIC 2T, because I usually use serial for router connections, since I'm old school. And we'll go ahead and hit next. And here, this is the idle PC screen that has the idle PC finder, and basically what it does is it looks for the best value or core value for your processors to use when loading this router platform. It starts out, sometimes you'll see it will already have one in there. Even if it does, I still recommend pressing this button. And let me show you. Basically, if you bring up Task Manager and go to your Performance tab, if you watch this CPU usage, it will show you what your, before you click this, it will show you what you're currently using for your CPUs. As soon as you click this, though, and go back to it, it fluctuates. It goes up and down, and basically what it's doing right here is it's looking for that best value. And once it finds it, which it takes anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds, depending on the speed of your processor, once it finds it, it will show up in another window. This will go away and it'll show up, and you'll see this go down to a lower level than it's currently at, which we'll see here in a second. I think it, there it goes. So just found it. So that's the best value for that particular, like I said, iOS image. So we'll go and hit OK to that, at least for this PC, and every PC is different, so that's why you have to run it. So we'll go and hit finish, and that is it. Pretty much that's all you do. You can go in once you have loaded it to go into edit, and you can make changes to memory and here again, and even your iOS if you want, and add more adapters and WICs and whatnot. But this is where you want to make sure that this value is in here, because if it's not, that idle PC will not be working correctly, and will pretty much peg out your CPU utilization, especially if you have a huge topology with a bunch of routers on it. So you want to make sure you do that. So go ahead and hit cancel to that. So now let's go ahead and get IOU devices up, and IOU is iOS on Unix. That's what it stands for. And the only thing I do in here is I add the IOURC license file, and that's back under C root in that GNS3 images folder, and that's it right here. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but Cisco is the one who provides this license file, and if you contact them, they'll help you with procuring one. So that's where you get that. So I'll go and double click that. And same with any of the, like I mentioned, any of the iOS, IOU files, and the ASA files, as well as keys for the ASA. If you contact them, they'll help you with that. So now we got that in GNS3. We also got to put it in VirtualBox. So in VirtualBox, we got to load, or I should say import the appliance, and we browse to where that's at. That's also in C GNS3 images, and you just want to make sure that you have this latest version of the VM, which is in this case 1.3.3 for GNS3 1.3.3, and we'll go and double click that to import it. Hit next and import, and it only takes a few seconds. Some processors are faster than others. So, okay, and there it is. So we go and start it, and the only other thing you got to do to it, other than load your as you'll see in a minute in your browser, is click this Change Network Settings, and then once that fills in all this information, you just go ahead and hit OK, and then I usually minimize that. And once it's fully up, it'll give a path that we got to put in our browser, and unfortunately it's doing that again. So let me double check to make sure. Sometimes that path gets put in there correctly, and other times it doesn't. So let's ping 192.8.56.101. Okay, good. So that's the IP address of this VM. Sometimes it'll show up before this colon 8000 slash upload, and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, as long as you can ping it, you're good to go. So I'll close out of that. We'll minimize this. One thing to keep in mind if you're going to use an IOU device, you do have to leave this running in the background. You can minimize it, same with this, but you do have to have it open whenever you're uploading your IOURC file or the images, or running those images, as you'll see here in a second. So let's go back into our browser, and basically this is the path that you want to put in your browser, and Firefox seems to work the best, in case you're wondering. IE works, but sometimes it's quirky and doesn't always work right. So I recommend Firefox. I haven't used Chrome or any other browser for this, but Firefox works the best. So from here, we want to upload our license files. So we select IOU license IOURC and browse to that C GNS3 images folder where it's at, and go and hit open and upload, and it uploaded it into the VM. Now we got to upload the IOU images. So you hit browse, go back into iOS, and it's these i86bi.linux.l2 and l3 files that you want to upload. So double click that, hit upload, and there's our layer 2 switch. Hit copy. The reason I'm copying that, as you'll see in a minute, you need to copy that. So we'll go and browse and upload the L3. And while that's uploading, we'll go back to GNS3, go into IOU devices, hit new, next. When this comes up, hit OK. And then we want to make sure our type is set to L2 because that's the first one we're loading. And you paste that path that I just copied into this IOU image line. And then on name, I usually put IOU underscore switch and hit finish. And then we'll hit new again, next, OK, change this to L3, and then we'll go back over here and get that. So now that's pasted in. The reason I do that is because the L3 takes a little longer than L2, so to save a little time, and being you have to go back and forth to copy, I usually do that. So we'll go and do IOU underscore router for this one and hit finish. Now we got our IOU switch and IOU router. From here you can go in and edit and add additional Ethernet adapters and serial adapters. Same with the switch. Usually you don't have serial on a switch, but I believe you can add that. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know if it'll let you though, but let's see. Yeah, I guess so. So anyways, I usually don't add a serial to the switch, but you can. So we'll go ahead and hit apply to that. So now we got our IOU devices. We'll skip over VirtualBox just right now, and let's just do this QEM ASA. Right here under QEM, I usually leave that checked. And then we'll go to QEMU VMs and hit new. Hit this down arrow, go ahead and select the ASA. It's the only one in here. There are some voice and IDS in here as well if you have those images, but I'm just going to show you how to load one of these QEMU VMs, which is the ASA. Hit next, and pretty much next all the way until you get to right here. And this is where we add our initial RAM disk and kernel image. So there's our RAM disk. There's our kernel image. And hit finish. From there, we got to go in and modify it. So I usually uncheck this activate CPU throttling. And then I go to hard drives, and this is where I add that flash file that we created. So go and hit OK to that. So now we got our flash loaded, and pretty much that's it for the ASA. We'll load it up. I won't show you how to load keys because pretty much if I load a key, you'll see what my key is, and then you'll have my key. So, but I'll show you how you can do it, or what the steps are to do it in a second. So from here, under VirtualBox, I usually don't do anything right here, and I go into this VirtualBox Vm Template and hit new. And from here, you can select which one you want to use. I got, like I said, WinXP and Win 7 Pro, but Win 7 Pro seemed to work much better. So go ahead and hit finish, and go ahead and hit apply, and OK. And now we're back at our main screen. So before we do anything, let's close out a GNS3 real quick and reopen it. And we can minimize this and close this and this. And now we got our GNS3 icon on our desktop. So let's go ahead and double click that. let it do its thing. Hit cancel to that since we're not doing a project just yet. So from here, we have all our devices. These are all the routers, the switches, the end devices, and the security devices. If you click each one, it will show you what those are, or you could click this all devices, which I usually use, and it shows you all of them. And basically, you may have more once you load up all your iOS routers as well. Um, but just to show you how it works, we'll go ahead and drag the 2600 router that we installed over, and there it is right now. It's stopped, and I'll go ahead and start it. It changes to green, and then we click this button right here. This is our console for Super Putty. So if you click that, it loads up Super Putty. And basically, that's it. We're at our prompt, and from here you can modify your config any way you would on any regular 2600 router. The only other thing I do as far as configuration is I do configure Super Putty options. You can configure putty options from right here, but for the most part you don't really need to. But you do want to go into this options and set your paths for Super Putty, and basically that should be your the path should be C, program files GNS3, go ahead and hit open, and the same for the settings folder. This browse is slightly different, so you'd have to go down to program files, which I don't know why they did that, but GNS3, and so now we got both these paths in here. From there, if you don't put these paths in, which say they're required, you can't save any changes to Super Putty options, I should say. So let's go ahead and go into GUI. I usually check this restrict floating windows, otherwise these tabs could come off of that tab bar and pretty much leave a floating putty window. You can drag it back up and drop it on there and it'll put it, but this restricts it so you don't accidentally do that. The only other thing I change is under advanced I restore window size and location, so that way if you have a specific spot on your desktop you want it to always open, it will if you do that. Let me go back in. There is also these shortcut options that you can use, a keyboard shortcut like to go to close a tab or go to the next or previous tab, which is nice. But I will say if you do this, make sure that it doesn't conflict with any other Windows or any other programs shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts I should say, otherwise it might conflict with it. So we'll go ahead and hit OK to that. So that's pretty much it for adding or running an iOS router, I should say. So let's go ahead and close that and go ahead and delete that. Whoops, there we go. Yes. And let's drag both the IOU router and the IOU switch over, and we'll bring those both up just so you can see how that works. And this is the well, we'll wait till it's fully booted. There we go. So let's see. All right, so now if we scroll up to the top, you see that it's a Linux, Unix image that's being loaded, and it shows the Ethernet interfaces for this switch. There's 16. Like I said, you can add more if you want. I usually leave it at that. And the same goes for the router. If you scroll up, let's see, where is it? There it is. This also shows, it's also a Linux Unix image with 8 Ethernet interfaces and 8 serial interfaces. And bear in mind these are 15.4, so it's good to go for CCNP if you need that for CCNP, which most people, actually I think everyone needs now for the new CCNP test. It uses 15.x whatever for that. So let's go and close this. All right, we can delete those. And let's see. The next one is the ASA. So bring that up. This one takes the longest to boot. During the boot up for the first time, you'll see it initialize the hard drive, which is coming up. Once it's fully booted, it looks similar to a router or switch interface as far as the way you log in and everything. It's to log in, it's no password, so you don't have to worry about. And there's the initialized hard drive right there. And so there we go. So we'll go ahead and enable, and again, no password. Once you got your keys from Cisco, basically from this point, you just go into global config mode like you normally would, config T, and from here I usually say no. And then once you're here, you could paste in your keys, and depending on how many keys you have, I think I got 2. You paste in one at a time, and then it'll have you confirm them. Once you've pasted in the last key and confirm it, you want to exit out of global config, and you want to do a cop run start, and then you do cop start flash, and that copies it to your hard drive. You do want to make sure that before you put your keys in, that you save, I would save a template project file, or folder I should say, and call it ASA with crypto loaded, because if you don't save it to a project, you have to reload your keys again the next time. And let me go up and show you what that kind of looks like after you've done that. So basically, after you loaded your keys, it will show what key is loading or running. Being we don't have a key in here, it just shows all zeros. And then it will also show the features that are enabled. Right now, this is the default set without a key loaded. Pretty much everything is disabled. Once you have your keys, it'll say enabled. Like for instance, failover will say active. This one will say enabled. Depending on what key you have, it'll pretty much change all of these. So that's pretty much it for an ASA. You can also view your flash file by doing a dir, and it shows that startup config that I just copied to it just a second ago. But other than that, that's pretty much it. There are other things you need to do, but as far as using the ASA, but as far as configuring it with keys, that's how you do it. And then you would just configure it like you would a normal ASA at that point. So I'll go ahead and close out of that. And last but not least, I'll go and drag this router back over here. And as you can see, now we got this little Windows 7 Pro. That's our VirtualBox VM that you should have already installed in here in VirtualBox. You don't need to power it up. GNS3 will power it up for you. One thing you do want to do though is go into your settings and make sure your network, and that wouldn't have worked if I did it, is set to not attached. Once you do that, you hit OK and you drag this over to the desktop and connect that like you would a normal PC. Now when you go to run it, it also will bring up the Windows 7 right here. And the first time you do, it'll give this window. You just hit, I would just leave this checked and leave that unchecked and hit allow access for your firewall. And then once you have that, pretty much it loads Windows 7. And once you have that up, while we're waiting for that to come up, let's go back into Super Putty and set up our interface that we just connected to. And that is, let me get rid of that. That is F0/0, and the VM has E0. So in Super Putty, you'll see this Windows 7 Pro, but I don't think it does anything, or at least I haven't got to do anything. But you do go into Super Putty to set up your router interface that we just connected. So to do that, you go into Config T and go into F0/0, and we'll just give it anything 19 IP at 168.1. We'll say 10. Oops, if I could type 10.1 255.255.255.0 and no shut and exit. And then you want to go over to your Windows, which is right here. And you may not have these icons on your desktop. If not, I would put them on there. And I believe you go into Personalize and go to desktop icons and check network. So you can add these others as well if you want. But once you got that, you right click on network just like you would in regular Windows and go into adapter settings, right click on this, go into properties like you normally would, and go into your IPv4 or 6 depending on what you set up, and hit properties, use this IP address, and I gave this 10.1, so we'll give this 192.168.10.2 and 192.168.10.1, and that's pretty much it. Once that closes, it'll pop up the network and you hit Home Network for network type and close, just like you normally would if you're connecting a PC to a router or switch. Well, probably a router in this case. And then from here, you can open up a command prompt and ping, and voila, you got VirtualBox running between GNS3, um, or at least you got a Windows 7 Pro PC running between GNS3 and VirtualBox, um, which, as I mentioned, you can load up in here other networking tools or whatnot and create clones. If you go back to your, or where is it? There it is. If you go back in here, you can, with it not running, of course, you can right click and create a clone and make multiples if you want. I haven't done that yet, but I believe that's how you do it. I don't know if you need a separate license for each clone, but if you do, you may need to get that from Microsoft. But in any case, that's how you run VirtualBox with GNS3, at least with Windows 7. So other than that, that's pretty much all I got to show you. So hopefully that's been helpful, and if so, please let me know by uh, giving me a like or thumbs down if you didn't like it down below this video. And if you have any questions, feel free to write to me down below. All right, well, take care, and I hope you have fun with GNS3. Take care. Bye.